This week on Ottawa Business Journal's Behind the Headlines, the city helps restaurants weather the pandemic, a well-known athletic club tosses in the towel, and Holland Cross looks to add a residential. All this and more coming up right now. Hello and welcome to Behind the Headlines for the week ending September 11, 2020. I'm Michael Curran from the Ottawa Business Journal. Behind the Headlines is a podcast from OBJ to explore the most read business stories of the week. I'm very pleased, as usual, to welcome two of my colleagues, Peter Kavesi and David Solly. Welcome to you both. Dave, we're going to start with you. The city is trying to help out one of the hardest hit industries during this pandemic. And of course, I'm talking about restaurants and taverns. They've looked at doing some accommodation that might allow these facilities to operate patios a little bit longer into the season. It's a season that's getting colder by the day, by the minute. Tell us what's happening, Dave.
Yeah, Mike. Well, as you said, the city is very concerned about the impact the pandemic has had on a number of industries, not the least of which is the bar and restaurant industry. It's been hit particularly hard, as you know. People don't want to gather indoors, so the city is going to try and help make it easier for them to stay outdoors a little bit longer than usual. In fact, council this week approved a plan to waive permit fees for restaurants and bars that run patios on sidewalks and streets through until March 31st next year. And they're also going to be allowed to keep operating patios on private parking lots, that sort of thing, even near residential areas, through to the end of the year. The city estimates that more than 60 operators have actually set up those kind of private patios this year to kind of encourage people to still come out, eat and drink outside, where they can physically distance in the outdoors and feel a little safer. So that's one thing that Mayor Jim Watson and council are trying to do to give businesses a fighting chance, as he says, to help get through the pandemic. Another thing that the city is considering doing that the mayor spoke about in a recent roundtable was actually kind of stepping up its snow clearing efforts, because as you know, guys, when there's it's pretty hard to do a curbside pickup when there's a 6-foot snowbank right outside your passenger side door there. So so the city's really going to try and step up, make sure that it keeps those commercial streets in Westboro and on Elgin and the Glebe and Montreal Road, that sort of thing. Keep those clear of as clear of snow as they possibly can to help ensure that that shoppers can don't have too much hassle when they're trying to park and pick things up at curbside this winter.
Peter, let's get you to share some thoughts on this to put this in a little bit more context. It's I'm sure the restaurant and bar industry appreciates what was done, but this is a little bit challenging as Ottawa slips into winter. Give us your thoughts on that.
Well, for me, it was such a dramatic moment when the first time as we did start to see the expansion of patios. I walked the stretch of Somerset from out Preston all the way to Elgin, and it felt like every single parking lot, side lot, alleyway had suddenly sprouted chairs, tables, and canopies as restaurants moved in to open up these patios. And the city's numbers do back that up. We've seen the number of officially registered patios go from about 100 in 2019 to 350 this year, after the city did move to relax some of its fees and restrictions on where patios could operate. But as Dave alluded, and as the city identified, this is going to be a huge challenge heading into winter. Will people be comfortable dining indoors? Anecdotally, in my neighborhood, I felt like I've started to see a few more people inside restaurants eating, but they're in such few numbers that it's really hard to see how that's going to be possible. So to that end, the city is working with Ottawa Public Health to sort of spread the word and I guess dispel the myth, as Mayor Watson said, that ventilation systems can spread COVID-19. And well, just sort of spread the message that it is safe to dine inside as long as safety precautions are being followed. But it's really going to come down to I guess almost psychology. Will people be comfortable going inside bars and restaurants once it does get cold?
Mm-hmm. And of course, all of this will depend on pandemic numbers. As we see a possible surge, we're maybe seeing the beginning of that. Dave, just before we move on from City Hall issues, the mayor also had something to say about the city's financial position and maybe tax rates in 2021. Can you give us a quick update on that?
Yeah, absolutely. As we all know, the city is in a pretty big financial hole because of the pandemic. It's not getting those revenues from rentals of city facilities. Transit ridership has just fallen into a huge hole, so they're not getting money from those fares. The city's losing $1 million a day in revenues it would have expected to get. And of course, it can't run a deficit under provincial law. So that means it either finds new sources of funding or it has to dig into its reserve funds. Well, the province and the federal government have pledged 124 million in emergency funding so far. But even still, that's a gap of 70 million the city has to find. So the mayor has said he's hoping to get more support from the feds and the province. Because he vowed during the roundtable, he said he is not going to budge on that 3% tax hike threshold that he's promised. He says, businesses and property owners just can't afford to pay more. Everybody's been hurt by the pandemic, so he's not going to pass those increased costs on to ratepayers, which means there's going to be more belt tightening and hopefully more funding coming from other levels of government to make up that shortfall.
Okay. Look, we're going to move on to the second story, which I thought was a story that would resonate certainly with a lot of business people. I'm talking about the closing of maybe what I would call an iconic athletic center, the Ottawa Athletic Club. Iconic simply because it had such a tight relationship with its members, and a bit of a business connection here, because I think a lot of business people did actually go there to try to stay fit. So Dave, tell us about what's happening with the OAC. Little bit of unfortunate news this week.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. This is a story that really did resonate a lot with our readers. Not surprisingly, the Ottawa Athletic Club, which, as you say, is iconic. I mean, when you think of fitness centers in Ottawa, it's one of the first names that spring to mind. And back in 1976, when real estate entrepreneur Saul Shabinsky launched the OAC, just the idea of a fitness center with weights and a full gym and all that was, it was really kind of a novelty. There was really nothing else like it in the city. He got Rough Rider star Jerry Organ to help him launch it, and it really took off. And for the next 44 years, it was an integral part of the city's fitness scene. But the fitness industry, I mean, as you can imagine, not many industries have been hit harder than it. I mean, you're looking at bars and restaurants, live entertainment, the airline industry. But other than that, when your whole business model is predicated on bringing together a whole bunch of people in a confined space like that indoors, it's tough. And so today is actually going to be the OAC's final day in business. It closes its doors forever tonight. And I was speaking to the general manager, Mark Peterson, the other day. He was very emotional talking about this. He's been at the club for 25 years, but he just said in a normal day 6 months ago, there would have been 1,500 people passing through the turnstiles. Now, under new regulations, only being allowed to have 50 people in there at any given time, and then having to do a deep cleaning after they leave in between sessions. I mean, you don't need to have a PhD in economics to to do that math and realize those numbers just don't add up. The president, Ian Shabinsky, Saul's son, I mean, he's been going there since he was a kid. He said he remembers swimming at the club when he was like 13 years old every day. And so for him, this has just been a really tough week. But it just goes to show the impact, the devastating impact the pandemic is having on this industry. And you've got to figure, Mike, this is the first big domino to fall, but it's probably not going to be the last in this space.
Yeah, I would. It's really too bad, but I would have to agree with that. Well, thanks for that, Dave. It'll be interesting to see the continued impact of the pandemic on gyms and athletic facilities. Peter, we're going to turn to you now for our third and final story. A fairly well-known real estate development on Scott Street at Holland. It's called Holland Cross. When I think of it, I think of the big office towers that are there. Of course, situated directly across the street from an LRT station. I suspect that's going to play into this issue as we talk about it. But Holland Cross is announced some big expansion plans. Tell us about those, Peter.
So they've revealed plans that they'd like to build a 29-story residential tower. This would have more than 300 rental units in it. So it's located, if you can picture the complex, at the southeast corner, so just overlooking the beer store. This particular parcel of land has long been slated for development. A few years ago, there were plans for an office tower that never came to fruition. And now the owner of the complex, LaSalle Investment, has said that they want to build a residential tower. You know, of course, the Hintonburg, West Wellington community has been very, very popular among developers over the last decade or so. We've seen a few new residential towers pop up along Parkdale overlooking the Tunney's Pasture complex. But, you know, we're really sort of seeing indications that there's another trend in play. If you look at Scott Street, right from about Pimsey Station and LeBreton Flats, where I guess it's still Albert, all the way into Westboro, there's so many different high-rise projects either under construction or in the planning stage. And of course, the commonality is that all of these are within walking distance of either a existing light rail station or one that's under construction as stage 2 really gets underway. So it certainly seems that there's a lot of signals that that developers in Ottawa are buying into the vision of these transit-oriented developments, putting more people close to light rail that so many proponents of LRT had hoped years ago.
The transformation on Scott Street is remarkable. I mean, the number of buildings going up, it boggles the mind. It's quite something and plays into what of course is happening from a residential perspective. Listen, Peter, we're almost out of time here. Give us a sense of what's coming up with Ottawa Business Journal.
So a lot of us are very hard at work preparing the next edition of the OBJ News Magazine. This is a really, really special edition of OBJ because we'll be profiling our annual CEO of the Year recipient, which is always a really sort of special moment for the city's business community. We've got a ton of special features going into this edition too. There'll be our a quarterly regional special report that focuses in on the business community outside of Ottawa, elsewhere in Eastern Ontario. We also have special features on tourism, exporting, as well as our revamped OBJ social. Obviously, it's another sector that's been forced to adapt due to COVID. So we'll be taking a special look at how charities and nonprofits have been adapting in the current environment.
And not only is that the issue special for those reasons, it's special because it's the first issue, news magazine issue that we're printing since the pandemic hit. So that's quite new. And it's the beginning, at least for the end of 2020 and 2021, of a quarterly print production schedule. So we had been producing the news magazine on a monthly basis and doing a great job. We're going to reshuffle some of our resources to stay focused on digital. I'm sure we're not the only business doing that. and still have a great quarterly magazine. In fact, I think we're going to be continuing to work on bringing some new content and some new contributors to it. So thanks to Peter and thanks Dave. I think you're going to be taking the lead on writing the CEO of the Year profile. So very excited to make that announcement in the next few days as well. So listen, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. A reminder that you can watch Behind the Headlines on YouTube. Please follow us and hit the little alert bell. We are also on Spotify. We're on Apple iTunes and SoundCloud, so you can listen to us. And just a reminder, we always encourage people to check out obj.ca, our website. Dave is leading the charge on that with the constantly updated news updates. And if you don't want to miss any of those news updates, you can also subscribe to OBJ Today, which is our weekday, Monday to Friday newsletter. Just go to obj.ca/subscribe. That's all the time we have for this week. I'm Michael Curran signing off on behalf of my colleagues, Peter Kavesi and David Sally. Please join us again. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.